It's no... Oh no, it's April! April 1868. Shit's about to go down. The cherry blossoms floating in the wind would find their resting place on the ground beneath us. Edo was undergoing a changing of the guard. The Supreme Commander, Lord Ieyasu Tokugawa, was the last in a line of succession that held dominion over Edo and its castle for over 300 years. What was once a prosperous bastion had become an olive branch, offered by the fading Tokugawa remnants as a token of surrender to the imperial army. For the townspeople of Edo, all that mattered to them was that they were untouched by the kiss of war. To the Shinsengumi, however, the surrender was a slap in the face. Their sacrifices and toils were wantonly discarded so the shogunate could save its own skin. As for Yamazaki-san and myself, we weren't quite sure of what to make out of the situation. Because the Imperial Army's march hadn't resulted in an all-out battle, the Fury Corps wasn't thrusted into another needless conflict just to hold Edo Castle. And as the two of us awaited news from the war front, we decided to remain in Edo, cautiously inspecting the incoming troops for any signs of malfeasance. Oh god. It only took 10 days for us to receive the news. Kondo-san's been captured by the Imperial Army? Hearing the news knocked the wind out of me, and my legs buckled so quickly that I thought I'd faint.
流山で新政府軍に包囲された際、近藤局長は部隊を逃がすためにおとりとなって自ら投降したそうだ。
Damn it, Dan.
そしてそう遠くないうちに私の刑場で斬首に処される。
Yamazaki-san bit into his lips, quivering as he stood up and began nervously pacing around the room. All of a sudden, he snapped his fingers as if he figured out some kind of solution. Yamazaki, what are you planning? My best boy, what are you planning? Where are you going?
決まっているだろう。これから局長の救出へと向かう。
But this is a clear trap. They're trying to lure the Shinsengumi from out of hiding. Bestest boy, right here.
だったらこの場で座したまま斬首の方が届くのを待てというのか。
Well...
すまない。君が俺のことを心配してくれているのは痛いほどわかる。だがそれでも俺は行かなくちゃならないんだ。俺は新選組の影だ。影は光がなければ存在できないのだから。
Then, let me accompany you. I might not have known him as well as you, but there's no way I can abandon Kondo-san. Here we go. We traveled to a forest of bamboo where soft moonlight flashed through tall bamboo stalks and breathed rhythmic sconces. I like this background. I think this is the only time it's used. Horses with imperial insignias were tied to a post beside the Itabashi inn, signifying that we'd arrived. Yamazaki-san and I ducked low to the ground, scoping the encampment for any signs of Kondo-san. It's quiet, almost eerily so. I don't see anyone around us. I'm getting the creeps. If Itabashi was supposedly housing an entire army, then the complete lack of noise was disconcerting. Considering their prisoner was the Shinsengumi's chief, arguably one of the highest profile officers they could have arrested, no one was standing guard.
まず間違いなく罠だろうな。 慎重に潜入経路を探るとしよ
But I'm not sure whom they're trying to trap.
いや、それほど複雑に考える必要などないよ。
Well, fuck.
相手をうまく罠にかけるため手を尽くさねばならぬ状況ならまだしも、今回は罠と分かっていても飛び込んでこざるを得ないような状況なのだからね。
Father? There he stood, his bald head glistening brightly under the moonlight after 4 years of searching. My father, Kodo Yukimura.
ああ、久しいね、千鶴。しばらく見ないうちに随分と大人びたよう
For a second, I could have sworn that time froze. Save for a kind, familiar grin appearing on Father's face. It was as if I were transported to a previous time, a child in front of her father's, basking in his warm glow. But it was merely the ghost of a thought. I had to remind myself to stop from sprinting up to him and wrapping my arms around his body. But here he was. But he was here. Both are correct, I think. Father had a malicious glint in his eye, resembling the look of a man who committed the sins for which he had been notoriously accused. On both sides of him stood his cohort of Furies, their eyes too glowing in the darkness. I held onto a thread of hope, steeling myself from letting my voice tremble as I called out to him. Father, why are you doing all of this? Why are there Furies with you? Surely Cosmo's omen was a misunderstanding. There was no way that Cosmo could have known Father's intentions, so perhaps he was mistaken. The man in front of me, my beloved father, was incapable of committing atrocities against mankind. I hoped against all hope that he would assure me, first with his eyes, then with his eloquent words. My heart, sadly, was too far from the mark.
な。挫折か。なるほど。新選組にいただけあって、ある程度の事情は知っているようだ。
Father nodded, grinning wryly. Father, what's the meaning in all of this?
何よ。決まっているじゃないか。私は理想の国を作りたいんだよ。西洋のことを知れば知るほど、私はこの国に絶望してしまったんだ。この国はいずれアジア諸国のように西洋の圧倒的な力の前に屈することになるだろう。だから私はその前に作り変えるんだよ。この国を戦える国へと。
戦えるというのは民を羅刹に変えるという意味か。血の渇きに狂わされ家族仲間も愛する者ですら手にかけようとしてしまう化け物。この国をそんな代物がはびこるこの世の地獄へ変えようというのか。
Why, Father? The father I knew would never do such a horrid thing! Everything I knew, I learned from you. What about your patients? You cared for them and they loved you. Each and every time I drew a fever, you were there by my bedside, staying up all night.
徹夜？ああ、それは当然のことじゃないか。
His lips curled into a genial smile. The warm, soothing bellow of his voice sank my heart.
もし私まで眠ってしまったら、投与した薬の経過を観察できないだろう。
What?
羅刹の力は当然素晴らしいが、純血の鬼はそれ以上のものを秘めている。あま まりに貴重な存在だから重度の実験はできなかったが、本当にお前の生命力は素晴らしいよ。常人なら治療の毒を何度か持っても軽く苦しむだけで回復していたからね。
Dose of poison? You're lying. I replayed the words in my head, refusing to accept them as they were a horrifying, chilling reality. My mind was rattled by the cognitive dissonance. How could a voice so sweet tell a truth so sour?
新型の羅刹といっても日の光への耐性をつける程度しかできないが、お前の協力があれば話は別だ。お前の血を使えば今より効率よく落ち水を量産することができる。千鶴、私は今までお前をこの時のために育ててきたんだよ。江戸を離れていたのは予想外だったが、何、こうして戻ってきてくれたのだ。その血は必ずや羅刹の強化に役立つだろ
う。もういい。その薄汚い口を閉じろ、雪村行動。
Damn, so smooth.
ああ、山崎君にも感謝しているよ。まさか娘をここに連れてきてくれる。しかし局長が斬首との方を流しておけば新選組が殺到するかと思ったが、かかったのはネズミ一匹とは新選組の方々も存外情が薄いようだ。やは
りその情報を流したのは俺の罠だったか。
罠とは人聞きが悪い。近藤さんがいらっしゃるのは事実だ。その上で用向きを伺おう。一体何をしに来たんだね、山崎君。
決まっている。近藤局長は返してもらうぞ。邪魔するなら切る。
With that, Yamazaki-san hurled a kunai at lightning speed towards father, prompting one of his fury minis to dive in the path of the knife, killing it. Father, however, hadn't even broken a sweat, nor had his smug smile left his face.
ゆっくりと親子の再会もさせてくれないとは。雰囲気を察することのできないお人だ。
局長をおとなしく返してくれるなら捕らえた上で話ぐらいはさせてやる。
そういうわけにはいかないな。新政府軍への義理もあるのでね。近藤さんをおとりにここで新選組を叩いておけという話だったが、首一つでもないよりはマシだ。
しとる。
As Yamazaki-san kicked into a sprint, a crowd of furies moved towards him, salivating at the mouth.
この程度俺の相手になるか。
Father watched Yamazaki-san cleave through the furies with thinned eyes, stroking his chin absent-mindedly.
おお、なるほど、興味深い。私の失踪後に落ち水を新選組独自の手法で改造したのか。それとも本人の素質の問題か。ここまで羅刹としての能力が素早さに特化した例は極めて軽微だが。
Father, you're changing.
これが鬼の血を引く者の本当の姿だよ。もっとも私は落ち水によってこの力を得たのだがね。
Father slid his hand into his pockets, clutching a fistful of scalpels before flinging them into the fray. Yamazaki-san!
何
The scalpels rained upon the horde of warriors, hitting not only Yamazaki-san but all of the surrounding Furies as well.
味方を巻き込むのに躊躇はないか。傷が治る羅刹ならではの戦法だな。だがそれは俺とて同じことだ。小刀が2、3本刺さったところで。
残念ながら的外れな予想だ。
Suddenly, the Furies around Yamazaki-san collapsed to the floor, moaning and writhing in agony. Their eyes bulged, blood trickling slowly from their sockets and nostrils in a morbid scene. What? Why aren't their wounds recovering? My face strained of color as I glanced over at Yamazaki-san.
何をした
Stab wounds from the scalpels tattered Yamazaki-san's thin arms and legs, and he dropped to his knees.
苦しいだろう。羅刹の身にこれは毒とな。再生を期待するだけ無駄だよ。
Father shot a quick, smug look at Yamazaki-san. Then he shifted his line of sight towards me. A menacing glow radiated behind his familiar eyes, summoning chills that clawed along the length of my spine.
さて千鶴、こんな状況だが会えて嬉しいよ。これから羅刹体を大きくするためにはどうしても純血の鬼の力が必要なんだ。
What do you want from me?
大丈夫。お前は何もしなくていい。何も考えなくてもいいんだよ。ただ毎日死なない程度に血をもらうだけだ。羅刹にとって何より甘美なその鬼の血をね。
貴様は何を言っているのか分かっているのか。
もちろんだ。改良が進めば羅刹は純血の鬼の血が入った新型の羅刹となる。日の光も恐れず不死の体を持ち鬼の力をもしのぐ完成された羅刹。いわば千鶴は羅刹の母となる。これは実に素晴らしいことだよ。
Nope, no way, There's no way.
まあそうだ。医学の心得があるなら山崎君は私の助手になってみるかい。毎日欠かすことなく千鶴の血を絞るだけ。君のような医者もどきでもできるとても簡単な仕事だ。
ざけるな
Yamazaki-san screamed passionately at the top of his lungs, attempting to lift his body from the ground. Before Yamazaki-san could stand, Father kicked him back down, then pressed his foot on a scalpel lodged in Yamazaki-san's abdomen deeper into the flesh. Father, stop!
やめるかどうかはお前の答え次第だよ。さあ、お前はいい子だから父さんの夢を手伝ってくれるね。
The intense pressure of Father's weight caused Yamazaki-san's wounds to gush heavily with blood. I wanted nothing more than to reject Father's appalling requests, but if he were to keep things like this, Yamazaki-san would surely have bled to death. I was shaking violently with rage, and just as I was about to give in out of desperation... A blood-curdling scream echoed from somewhere behind us, and I glanced backwards out of reflex.
何事だ。
わかりません。何者かが次々と兵士を倒して。なんだこいつ。我々の弱点。
As the Fury had said, something was lurking in the shadows, carving through their flesh and bones like a butcher through swine. Few individuals were aware of how to kill Furies outright, let alone accomplish the deed successfully. If the Shinsengumi men were already in Aizu, then whoever could it be? The attacker's silhouette came within view.
何者だ。
The impenetrable wall of Furies had crumbled. Scattered along the floor were the ghoulish remains of flayed limbs soaking up rich puddles of blood.
新選組
Something remarkable happened. A vision, cutting like light through darkness, clad in a sky blue haori.
新選組一番組組長沖田総司
Okita!
どうしてあなたがここに。はあ、まるでボロ雑巾だね。それでも新選組の大使かな、山崎君。僕がここに来た理由は当然一つしかないよ。久々だけどコードさん、今すぐ近藤さんをこちらに渡してくれるかな。おとなしく渡したら楽に殺してあげる。
Okita shot a cold glare at father from a distance, anticipating himself to lunge quickly on command. His eyes dripped with a hateful aggression.
もう一匹ネズミが迷い込んできましたか。ですが君の話は聞いているよ、沖田君。持病に侵されて余命幾ばくもないと。今も立っているのがやっとだろう。どうやってここまで来たのやら。
Okita remained silent. His cheeks were pale and gaunt, and his clothes were loose over his delicate body. It was clear that his condition had worsened. I grew anxious, hoping he wouldn't faint.
さあね、余命いくばくもないかは実際に試してみればわかると思うけど。
あら、かかれ！
Father raised his hand, signaling a gang of Furies encircling her group to lunge for Okita. One thing Okita hadn't lost was his swagger, and he fearlessly walked towards the rushing horde, letting his sword screech as he dragged it along the floor. Ground! Only when the Furies were a split second from crashing into him had Okita raised his sword, piercing into one's chest with impeccable precision. He then maneuvered his sword into a fulcrum, using his foe's lifeless body to propel his momentum forward. In one swift movement, he twisted the blade out of the Fury's body and slashed at the next incoming Fury, decapitating its head cleanly from its body. The resulting force knocked Okita square on his back, but he had enough muscle memory to roll out of the way, dodging the bloody stampede. His body was filthy with blood and dirt. Soon he launched into an astonishing display of technique, bouncing between Furies like his sword was guiding his movements. One by one, the Furies fell victim to his graceful destruction, ribbons of blood splashing in the air. He persevered, spurred by his mission to save Kondo-san.
バカな。なぜそこまで戦える？
決まってるでしょ。刀が震えなくても、足が折れて立てなくても。そんなもの何一つ僕が近藤さんを助けない理由にはならない。
あのれ、死に損ないが。
死に損なってるのはそっち。新型の羅刹って言っても大したことないよね。瀕死の人間一人片付けられないんだからさあ。
Without missing a beat, Okuta slashed his blade into an enemy fury's head, tearing its face asunder and exposing brain and teeth with his blade's sharp edge.
何ぼーっとしてるの、千鶴ちゃん。山崎君を連れて早く逃げなよ。
You expect me to leave you here, Okuta?
戦えない君と瀕死の山崎君がここに残って何か意味があるのかな。はっきり言って足手まといなんだよ。
Okuta coldly dismissed my concern, turning his back towards us before addressing me softly.
言うことを聞きなよ、千鶴ちゃん。
Okuta spoke candidly with his usual sardonic tone. But his cocksure attitude was a front, and his eyes dripped with melancholy. He cleared his throat, shifting his line of sight. If I couldn't learn to see through Okita's veneer and accept his sincere sentiment when he offered it, then I would be disrespecting his sacrifice. Okita, may the fortunes of war rest in your favor.
ありがとう。引き分けのいい子は嫌いじゃないよ。
I bit my lip to the point of breaking the skin. I lifted Yamazaki-san up, letting him rest on my back, and began to walk as I heard Okita's voice behind me.
今行くよ、近藤さん。敵を倒してたどり着いたらいっぱい褒めてくれるかな。
Everything after leaving Okita was a blur. With Yamazaki-san on my back, I sprinted through the forest, fighting the urge to collapse from exhaustion. I had no idea where to go or how long to run. Fatigue tightened my calf muscles, as if my body were crying out to me in a desperate plea to stop. I grew dizzy to the point that my vision was swirling, hues of black and red clouding my sight. Suddenly, we toppled to the ground, slamming into the mountainous terrain as a breeze grazed our cheeks. No, we must go further. No matter how many times I repeated the thought to myself, I couldn't will myself to lift my body from the ground. Then, I heard footsteps tapping somewhere in the close distance, and my eyelids drooped, slinking my consciousness into darkness.